Good morning. Thank you. Man, low energy level. Where's Patrick? He's not even in here. I was going to thank Patrick for giving us the graveyard shift because this is a tough crowd right now. Patrick, where are you? You're hiding. I don't know whether it's a reflection of how much you think about these traditional businesses, but hopefully within the next 15 minutes, I can say enough to get you a little bit excited about why you might want to work with us. So maybe in the next 15 minutes, I'll try to do what Karamjit was unable to do with the VCs yesterday. I'll talk a little bit about what we're investing in. I'll talk a little bit about why we're investing in them, and then hopefully describe a little bit about the idiosyncrasies of a telco, a mobile operator, such that you folks can then kind of figure out how to work with us, because it's not that easy. So just a quick introduction. My name's Khairil. Actually, my official title is Chief Executive Officer, but within the ADS community, I'm actually called the Council Elder. We don't really have the traditional titles. We're kind of doing away with all of that. So what I'll try to do is, first of all, actually describe a little bit about Axiata, because I think it was a little bit arrogant of me to kind of assume that people would know who Axiata is. And I was quite stunned yesterday that there were at least 5 people who didn't know who Axiata is. So maybe we'll start with that if this works. So this is who we are. This is actually a picture from our annual report. We are the second largest telco group in the region. We have 8 properties across South Asia, Southeast Asia. I think the thing that's quite interesting about us is, as you think about unicorns, we're 19 times a unicorn, although we're a public listed company. But the other thing that's also quite interesting is the fact that we do cover 260 million customers, and that's actually a very nice calling card when we work with some of the companies. ADS, or Axiata Digital Services, is actually a very new offshoot. It's the internet offshoot of the Axiata Group. We started 2.5 years ago. Sorry, apologies. Let's try to click this. So we're about 30 companies in our portfolio, serving about 15 million companies with customers within the group. In these kind of 5+1 vertical, right? So digital advertising, we've heard about. Actually, it lines up very well to your agenda, Patrick. So I don't know whether you were copying a page from me or I was copying a page from you. Either way, we're kind of thinking alike. But anyway, digital advertising, e-commerce, money, digital entertainment, and education, and somewhere in that column is gaming as well. And then finally, disruptive models, which I'll describe a little bit in a second. We do have this horizontal layer here, which is effectively a means of working with a lot of the over-the-top and digital companies. We're essentially creating APIs and exposing these APIs to a lot of tech companies that want to kind of plug into our assets. And of course, in the midst of doing that, we're also setting up a fund such that if you have an interesting business model and if you're linked up to our assets and if there is a potential for a valuation upside, we want to be able to ride on that as well, right? So I do have some colleagues from ADIF here. Jamal sitting at the back there. Some of our principals from ADIF. ADIF stands for the Axiata Digital Innovation Fund. We've committed some capital into that fund now, and we're actually actively investing in companies like yourselves. We, as a group, though, we don't think ourselves as a fund, but if we do, then we probably are a relatively large tech focused fund in Southeast Asia, both in terms of committed capital as well as deployed capital. So we're very, very keen to talk to folks like you guys because I think there are a lot of interesting ideas that you might have. So these are the verticals, Karanjit, I don't know if it answers your question, but these are the verticals, very, very precisely the verticals that we're investing in. Now, why are we doing that? 2 reasons. One is actually a little bit more selfish. We do have a core business, which, as you saw before, close to $19 billion US dollars in terms of market cap. And anything that we can do to enhance the value of that core business will help. So we're looking to partner and collaborate with companies, digital companies that can actually help us increase our ARPU, reduce our churn, provide us with opportunities to acquire new customer sets. So anything that we can do to raise and enhance our core business revenue, that's going to help, right? And we will be looking to participate with that. But the second thing that we also realized after about 18 months of doing this is that we're actually sitting on a gold mine. I often describe it as sort of oil underneath our operations. And it's like you're sitting on a plot of land, you've got oil underneath, you can do absolutely nothing with it, and it's still fine because right on top of that, I've got plantation, I've got paddy fields, I've got sort of wheat and so on and so forth. But for us, we recognize that actually the oil, well, not now I guess, but back then the oil was worth a lot more, and we want to be able to kind of mine that oil. And so we're looking to essentially leverage a lot of our core assets. So what do I mean by that? Let me touch on the left first, and then I'll go into the right. So the last one is, how do we contribute to the core? This is an example of a content business and what it does to our ARPU. Very conscious that Mark is sitting behind, and he's going to use this data to try to negotiate with us. Yeah, so don't use this data, Mark. But essentially, if there are good content propositions, and if we can actually bundle with a telco, we're actually experiencing some good uplifts, both in terms of our prepaid and our postpaid cohort, right? So this is a sample, it's not necessarily, it doesn't happen across our business, but this is something that we kind of look closely for, and we're looking for content partners that can actually help us drive that. The other thing is churn, as I was talking before. We talked a little bit about mobile wallet propositions yesterday. If you have a good enough mobile wallet proposition, if you look on the charts on the left, your left, no, my left, that user cohort, we found that churn was dropping by about 29%. But if they were going beyond just becoming a registered user, but actively using it, then churn almost drops to zero, right? 91% reduction in churn. So if you have a great wallet proposition and you can link up with us and we can provide that to our customers then don't churn, right? Which is great for us. So essentially, we're looking for digital partners that can actually help us fulfill these goals. Second one then becomes, how do we leverage our customer access? So you all saw that number before, 260 million customers, right? I think, Patrick, you said yesterday in your introduction, 220 million smartphone users in our region, in Southeast Asia alone. So a big chunk of that 260 million that you saw just now are now on smartphones or will be switching to smartphones within the next couple of years. You could work with us, and we could kind of provide you access with them, and we'll charge you, your typical CPA. Now, by the way, this is not your classic CPA. This is actually cost. We do have digital marketing units within our portfolio, and they track how expensive it is to kind of acquire a revenue-generating subscriber for gaming, for chat, for video, for e-commerce in our regions. And this is sort of some of the numbers. I mean, hopefully you're getting much lower numbers than this, but these are numbers that we're seeing. And also on the one hand, we could provide you a portion of those 260 million customers, and we'll charge you a multiple of this, $20 times how many, well, name a number that you need, and we'll give it to you. That, by the way, is not very exciting for me personally, because that is still relatively small. If you compare the scale to the other number, right, valuation per subscribers. These are kind of very relatively well-known social media, chat, music streaming, and mobile ops is us, right? But these are kind of the typical valuation per subscriber, simply because there is an LTV model against every single one of these subscribers. So I guess what we're looking for is when you work with us, we're hoping that we can land somewhere between these two numbers, because just to supply you with the customer access, that doesn't allow us as a telco to capture the valuation arbitrage or the EV per subscriber arbitrage between your business and our business. Of course, we've invested a lot to try to acquire those customers. We've built networks, right? Very expensive networks. And we've paid a lot in kind of acquiring those customers. So we want to be able to kind of capture a value that's between these two numbers, probably, hopefully, more towards the left-hand side. The next set of assets that we also want to leverage is our data assets. And I have to say this with caution, because you all are going to just run out of this room and turn off your cell phone after this, right? But yeah, mobile operators, mobile operations, mobile companies do pick up a lot of data. In fact, one of my analysts said that even within our small footprint, we're carrying, I don't know, what is that? That's petabytes, I guess, right? So 1 petabyte of information just on a daily basis. And that's a lot of rich information. And especially in our markets where we're essentially data poor. So the gray bars here are the US, and this is kind of in terms of the percentage of total subs that you can gather information on for intent, for purchases, for interest. The gray bars are so much higher than the red and the blue bars, the red being Indonesia, the blue being Malaysia. So we're in data poor regions. And so we've kind of discovered that actually a role that we can play is to actually help companies like yourselves to target the very customers that you're trying to target. Now, of course, these are all within the context of the privacy laws that we have within our countries, our geographies. But we could, there are several ways to sort of monetize that, and we'll be willing to work with, over-the-top players, digital players, to kind of find ways to do that within the context of the regulation. So those are the two primary assets, if you like, that we want to be able to kind of expose and work with you guys on. Maybe it's a kind of quick show of hands. Anyone here has some form of experience working with a telco? Okay. Anyone has good experiences working with a telco? Wow. Where are you from? Sorry, Maxis. From a telco. Yeah. So in general, and that's probably a reflection of the low energy level here, but in general, telcos are slow. Telcos, I often use this graphic when I describe, telcos, right? That I don't know whether you guys know this, but between the time that the iceberg was spotted to the time of the impact to the iceberg, it was actually a very long lag time between the time it originally spotted to the time of impact. And in a sense, telcos can be like that. I say can, right? I'll explain more in a short while. Because telcos, have an incumbent business model that is generating a lot of cash, right? And so in order to kind of change that, you kind of need to sort of convince a lot of people to do that. So there's a lot of inertia. There's also a lot of, if you like, decision-making idiosyncrasies, right? That makes it very, very hard for nimble, fast-moving, agile companies like yourselves to sort of work with. So that was a little bit the whole point of why we created this offshoot, right? And we have, I guess, I'll just highlight a few things that we do slightly differently. We're actually an independent unit, right? We do have an independent board. We have an independent investment committee. Yes, the business does ultimately report to the group level board, but we're relatively independent. We have simplified our decision-making governance quite drastically. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do the number of deals that we've done in the last 6 to 12 months or so. We want to be able to share our rewards with the core business, because otherwise they're not going to expose their assets to us. And it's actually the assets that we're looking for and that you guys are looking for anyway, the access to the customers. Our team has a bias for, when I say this, I'm a little bit embarrassed because you guys are all executing day and night, all the time, right? For me to kind of stand up here and say bias for execution to you guys, it's a little bit embarrassing. But this is actually something relatively unique to a telco, right? I'm not saying Axiata is an example of that, but if you imagine like a telco which is predominantly postpaid, postpaid is basically receiving money every month, right? It's an annuity business. You don't really have to do much. Every month, you're getting that little check from your customers. And with that, you don't have any need, any desire, any incentive to innovate. And so one of the things that we had to kind of change was almost kind of culturally the guys that we had brought on board to Axiata Digital Services to kind of be a little bit more biased to executing. And then actually, this is an interesting one. I missed out a comma in the last one. It's fail, comma, to learn, as opposed to fail to learn. Very subtle nuance there, but yeah, you need a comma to kind of explain this. But yeah, we have shut down some businesses because they didn't work, right? And I think that's something that telcos traditionally haven't done so well. So we've kind of adapted to that. We have in one of our portfolio companies in Indonesia, by the way, which Azran is on the board of, the digital unit there has they essentially put up posters of all the businesses that they've shut, just as a reminder of what they've done wrong and what they've learned from it, right? And I'm actually quite proud to announce that digital services unit in Indonesia just won Frost & Sullivan's Indonesian digital services provider for the year again. So well done. Am I out of time? Sorry. One more minute left. So I guess that's me. I'm more than willing to talk to anyone. I think I've sort of lined up some conversations after this. But I guess my main message to you is that we as a telco, we're trying to adapt to the speed, the momentum, I guess the goals that you guys have, but we're bringing something quite interesting to the table, right? Which is, apart from everything else, our customer access and our data insights. So feel free to kind of reach out to us, any of my team members here, and hopefully we can do something kind of work together. Thank you very much.